Welcome to Healthy University, where we'll discuss issues and subjects on how you can live a healthier and more productive life. And now, here's your host for Healthy University, Alan Eisenberg.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Healthy You. This is your host, Alan Eisenberg. And, I just finished a blog article, and it was really weird to write. And I'll tell you why it was really weird to write. Because it was all about how I've been having sort of an extended period of happiness. And I think it's been years. It was really bizarre. And I said, I got to write about this because I was feeling so good for so long. And then I had a blue period one day or soon after that. So it's kind of weird, but I was glad I wrote it, and as I read it back, it's almost that inspiration kind of message where I can read it now when I'm not feeling so good, and it helps. And with that in mind, I think I have a guest that might understand exactly what I'm talking about. My guest today is Michelle A. Homme. She's a published author, energetic speaker, empowerment coach, and quote writer. Currently, she's creating a nonprofit to empower teenagers and young adults working to reduce the number of suicides, which is so important. And also, she's partnering with another nonprofit to empower teenage girls. And when not doing all of that, Michelle finds time to teach at local shelters for women. So she's a real inspiration. I'm really glad to have Michelle on the show today, and welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Alan. It's great to be here. I'm really super excited to talk with you and your audience.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. And I don't know if what I just said resonates, but I think, that happiness idea is when I talk about, I say happiness is fleeting, just like sadness. Life is a balance. And it's such an important thing, right?
It is. And I agree completely. And one of the things that I do when I am talking with people is ask them what brings them joy. And a lot of times people are so busy going to work and taking care of kids and taking care of elderly parents and taking care of the house and doing all of these things that require attention and detail and are obligatory, as we all have in our lives, but they seem to have lost their sense of joy. And one of the things that I am trying to remind them is that even if you find one thing, just one thing, that adds joy to their life and their already busy life where it feels chaotic and crazy, that the rest of that stuff doesn't feel as, it doesn't drag us down as much if we just find a little bit of happiness, a little bit of joy, a little something that kind of reminds us that we have something to look forward to instead of just holding on to the dreary and the heartbreak and all of those other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a really neat study out there of working mothers. And what it found was that working mothers who took a half hour a day to do something for themselves, so say they went to the gym or just went and had coffee, whatever they want to do,
right.
Their kids, their children were growing up much better off than the parent, the mom or parent who
right.
wasn't taking time for themselves. Because, life is a balance, but also you have to take care of yourself as much as you have to take care of anyone else. I actually believe you can't take care of others unless you're taking care of yourself. So I think it's that important.
And I agree with you, Alan, 100%. And, I think women have something that kind of holds them back a little bit more that maybe men don't, whether they are working or not. And that women, at least in my experience in working with them, is that they have this incredible sense of guilt whenever they take time for themselves. And, I have a graph where I basically talk to women and say, okay, these are all of our obligations. And it's an upside down pyramid. And at the bottom of that pyramid is me, meaning, hey, this is all I have left over that's for me. And by that time, we're so exhausted. We just don't even have the energy to do anything. And several years ago when I started running with the intent of losing weight, the person that was coming to help me achieve my goals said, when do you have time? And I literally said 5 o'clock in the morning. because I knew that I was not imposing on anybody else's schedule. I was not taking anything away from anyone else. And one of the things that what I do when I am talking to women, especially saying, you know what, you will be a better mother, a better friend, a better sister, a better wife, better coworker, whatever, if you add some time in there for you. And it's not about trying to find time. It's about making time. And there's a big difference.
Yeah. And it comes with sacrifice. Like you said, it could be 5 a.m. It could be,
right.
You have to decide, I have to do this because I'll be better. And I always love telling the story about my gym. When I was never a workout person, and sort of, had to find that in me to realize, exercise and doing things, even just going to the gym and being by myself and going to the gym, and just being
right.
alone with my music or whatever I'm doing,
sure.
is good. But more so, it's just funny how there's a sign walking in that says, know that getting here was half the battle. And then walking out, it says, know that you'll be back tomorrow, which is, I'm like, those gym people,
awesome.
Someone was really mindfully smart. Like, they know we don't want to do it, but we're doing it because it's good for us.
Well, right. And one of the kind of side effects of me getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning that I didn't even anticipate was that I fell in love with the sunrise. And I know that the sunrise happens every single day. It's been happening for almost 49 of my years. However, I had taken it for granted. And in that sunrise, it reminded me that this day, whatever day it was a new beginning, and that I could choose what I did next. And I think that sometimes we forget how beautiful something like a sunrise is. And so now, even when I go to the gym, and my husband and I usually go together, he likes to work out right after work, but I don't like to work out right after work. I like to work out first thing in the morning, and we're at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning because I know that I start my day. It's kind of like my coffee. And I start my day off feeling great that I've worked out for an hour, and as I'm leaving the gym, guess what's coming up? That sun. Yeah. And it just reminds me to fall in love with the day and embrace whatever happens, whether it's a surprise or something else. And usually this time of year, because we live in Nebraska, I take advantage of going to the gym and also going on a walk outside where I can just spend some time with me and my thoughts and kind of figure out what's going to happen today and how I interact with what's going to happen today.
And of course, what you're talking about is, that elusive mindfulness, which is, that ability to just focus on that day. The other yesterday's past, tomorrow isn't a worry. The sun's coming. You're really, that's a cool way to think about how you're doing it. I'm definitely like your husband. I like to work out after I've had my frustrated day, but that's a neat way, to approach a mindful day, right? You get to the gym and you're probably tired, and then you do your workout, the endorphins hit, boom, you're up. Right. It's like you said, coffee. That's the same effect, except hopefully it lasts longer. Yep. And then you see the sun, and it's today is a new day to start again. Not something else.
It's the beginning, but I will tell you, Ellen, I wasn't always that way. I wasn't always the one that just embraced today. I was very much a planner. I equate myself to Mr. Spock from Star Trek. So I was very analytical, very rational with whatever decision I made because it had to make sense. And I needed to know the outcome, and I needed to collect whatever information I could so that I could make a choice or a decision that would hopefully be the best one of all of the different options. So I wasn't always that way, and that was part of my transformation and part of what got me to where I am right now. But I wasn't always this way.
So what do you think was the trigger? How did you get there? What point did you hit? Because I think, for all of us, and I've talked openly about it, but that I hit a wall, and you and I you gave it away, but you and I are the same age. So the wall was in my early 40s, which, they talk about midlife crisis, but, these things are real. Like, people have different things happen at very particular times. We have sort of these high points where, we hit these walls. And so
Right.
what was it for you? What was the trigger?
Well, it's kind of a remarkable. It's a very amazing story, and I can tell you, Ellen, that I wasn't looking for anything different. I was very happy, very content. My husband and I have 3 sons. I love my job. I mean, I was just, things seemed to be operating on all cylinders. It was really, really great. And then a friend and I went to lunch, and we basically found ourselves asking the same questions, even though we took different roads to get there. And so she kind of was saying, well, why us? Why now? Why are we having these questions? And I basically said back to her, and I can't tell you why, but my exact words were, maybe we're ready to receive it now. Nobody talks that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went to my office, and all of these words and thoughts kept coming to me, and she suggested that I write this all down, and I really was hesitant to do that. And I had spent most of my years kind of hiding, not on purpose, but basically just kind of, blending in with the crowd. And then 6 weeks later, I met a woman that would change my life forever, and she has continued to influence me, and that happened to be the woman that I was getting up and running with at 5 o'clock in the morning. But she began to see things in me that I had never seen, and no one else had really made mention of before. And I had spent years of hiding and keeping walls up and keeping people out, and yet she encouraged me to finally be seen and be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote my first book in 2013, which is basically a synopsis of the transformation that I had from 2010 to 2013. And then in 2014, I quit my job with the support of my husband and launched my business and started doing things that included empowerment coaching and motivational speaking and the quote writing and all of the things that you previously mentioned. So that's what got me here.
You know what I find, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's this idea that I had the same thing. It's this idea that somewhere along the way, and maybe you can think about it from a family perspective, or I know for me it was just sort of a self-esteem breakdown. I had to be perfect, and I don't know what it was at early in my life that led me to believe I had to be perfect. Or actually, I kind of do. It was a funny thing that happened with my mother, where her mother treated her so badly that she would never do that to us. So she would talk my sister and I up, and that led us to believe that we needed to live to that standard. So I always tell people, I say, the standard is the middle. It's not
right.
It's not be perfect or you're always bad. It's the middle. Right. You're going to be both, and that's what it was for me. Do you ever think about, like, what was it that you had that personality trait, or was it perfection?
Yes.
Or this idea that everything had to fit?
Perfection played a big part of that, Alan. My parents divorced when I was 7, and my parents are now retired teachers. But there were certain expectations with academics that kind of just came along with them as parents. And I always wanted to be perfect, and perhaps looking back, that part of that need to be perfect was stemmed from, okay, well, maybe they'll love me more. Maybe they will appreciate me more. There were times when I could do several things right. I played a lot of sports when I was younger, and that's how a lot of the kids that I grew up with knew me. I was in the smart classes, but I was also, on a field of some kind, generally speaking, the majority of the school year. And my sense of needing to be perfect was very evident when my dad would keep track of how many points I scored in a basketball game to make sure to point out the ones that I missed. So I could have scored 15, 18 points for my team, but he would point out the four shots that I didn't make. And I think I always wanted to be perfect because I wanted to excel. I was co-valedictorian for my junior high graduating class. I graduated with honors. And so I always pushed myself to be the best. And I never allowed myself to fall short. I never allowed anybody to see anything but perfect. I never allowed anybody to see what was going on in terms of, going through a divorce and trying to figure out who I was, but also as popular as I was and as well known as I was, I didn't really have very many friends.
Mm-hmm.
Friends.
Mm-hmm.
I was friendly with a lot of people, but I did not feel comfortable enough to step away from that and let somebody truly see me. And that's what this woman did in 2010, is she truly saw me as a person, and she saw everything that I could be instead of all the things that I was not, which was completely new to me as well.
Yeah, and
my husband, he sees all the great things, as do our sons, but to have somebody outside of our family see that was very mind-boggling. In fact, I tried to kick her out of my life for a year and a half because I just figured she would leave like everybody else did, and that's the gosh honest truth.
And it's sometimes it's shocking, when we are approached by someone who will give us honesty. Honesty is not always easy to come by, and then also you don't always realize when you're being mentored, when someone's really trying to help you. You think, okay, they're saying these things kind of like your dad. Your dad wasn't mentoring you in basketball, obviously.
No.
And that's the same thing that happened to my mom with her mom. And then you actually meet a mentor who's really trying to help you. They're trying to say, hey, have you, and then we become resistant because we have this perfectionist, right? And that's really, really a struggle. I think it's a struggle to do it. So, did you find yourself being more negative, or how did you get from negative to positive? What was the thing she said?
The scale, so to speak.
Yeah. What was the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell?
My dad was always there, and I appreciated him being there, but there was always that kind of underlying issue about, okay, well, you were really good, but kind of not good enough, kind of a thing. And when this woman came into my life, and the funny thing is, quite honestly, Alan, is that we ended up finding something in each other that we didn't even know we were looking for. And I think the tipping scale for me was when she basically said, you can't prejudge me because of what someone else has done. And because of this transformation of trying to figure out who I was and understanding the power of my mind and saying, you know what, I can look at this from this point of view, or I can see it from somebody else's point of view. And as much as I know she mentored me, I also mentored her. And we still have that relationship and friendship. So, awesome. And I also felt comfortable for the first time, aside from my husband and kids, that I could truly be who I know I was born to be. And sharing my story empowered me more than it scared me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how much I would gain from saying, me too, or gosh, I did that, and there were, my high school just had their 30th reunion, and there was a post on Facebook that talked about, a situation that happened to one of my classmates, and I made the bold move and said, hey, this happened to me. And I can't tell you how many times I had people that I went to high school with that came out and made comments, Alan, that said, I never knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you went through that. And so now that I'm at this different place of taking all the negativity, and I just assumed I didn't have any control, and everything that was going to happen was all going to be bad because that's the way I interpreted everything. And now I think she gave me hope. And hope is one of those things that, combined with perspective and understanding and compassion and all of those great human emotions, that allowed me to not be insecure, to not have to be perfect, to truly find out who I am. And she has walked that journey with me, even to this day. So It's been a transformation, and it has been something that I wouldn't even know how to go back to who I once was. But one of the biggest things that she said to me, we were at dinner, and her husband asked me, "Are you negative or positive?" And I said, "I'm positive." And she looked at me, and I could tell what that look meant. She said, "Not all the time."
Yeah.
And here I was working so hard to be positive and to be encouraging and to be that person that I really, really wanted to be. But I also knew that my old self still comes out.
Sure.
And I've worked really hard to make sure. And, that's when you have that kind of experience, you don't ever really lose it. You just get better at hiding it maybe, or you have people like her that say, "No more," kind of a thing. And I do the same thing with her. So, But that's really where I think the tipping scale was. And then it became basically a flood I couldn't even stop. And so it's changed me completely.
I always like to say it's, life is 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And if you think it's going to be
Absolutely
2 steps forward and 2 steps forward and 2 steps forward, now, we're still who we are. We're still human.
Absolutely.
And we have to allow ourselves that. So we have to take a quick break, Michelle.
Exactly.
But when we come back, I really want to talk about how now that you reach that sort of your stuff, how you're helping others in the work that you do, because you do some really important work, especially in the realm of suicide, teenage girls, and with women. So if you'll just hold on a sec, we'll be right back with more Healthy You.
You're listening to Healthy University with Alan Eisenberg. A girl who self-harms due to the relentless bullying in her life. A girl who is planning a new way to torture her victim through extreme bullying. A boy who must atone for his past while working to avoid what he did in the halls of his school by the kids who want to see him pay. A youth who wants to be called anarchy, busy making plans to destroy the lives of all those that mistreated him in his life. How do these 4 lives come together due to the bullying abuse in their community? And what will happen when they do? Find out in Alan Eisenberg's new book, Crossing the Line, coming soon.
Hi, and welcome back to Healthy University. I'm here with Michelle A. Homme, and she is a published author, an energetic speaker, empowerment coach, and quote writer, and also works with teenagers and young adults in the area of suicide. So we were talking a lot about our own lives and sort of about how we got to this point of positivity, of being able to help others, because as we were hitting on, Michelle, we were saying you got to help yourself before you can help others, and we both went through a journey. So how did you decide that this area where you're dealing with the sort of the suicides that are taking place in the young adult and particularly teen community was something you wanted to work with?
Well, my first exposure to suicide happened in 2005, October of 2005. And I've always been involved with kids. I was a coach. I taught junior achievement. I was a small group mentor for confirmation. So I've always been around kids. And in October of 2005, a young man that had been in my church group took his life. And he was a freshman in college. He was 14 years old. And, I kind of resonated with him because he came from a family of 3 sons. He was the youngest of the sons. And so that was my first real exposure to suicide and how it would affect my son, who was the same age. And it became something that, as a parent, I became very helpless and felt very helpless that I could not help this young man. And I had other members of that small group that were trying to find ways to get answers to what happened. And I told them that there is no answer that anyone could ever give you that will ever make sense. And then a couple of years ago, my other two boys also lost friends or people that they knew who also took their lives. And it has become something that I refuse to let go of. And my work with the nonprofit that works to empower teenage girls, I see a lot of me in them, and I don't want them to ever have to feel what I did growing up. And so that was my involvement with them. And now the friend that I initially went to lunch with has kind of come full circle, and we are the ones that are starting this nonprofit called pivot.org that will empower teenagers and young adults to make them feel better about themselves and teach them about life, real life, so that they are stronger and more courageous. And essentially, they become more resilient to whatever life throws them. And that's one of the things that I always wanted to teach my boys in terms of, you know, life's going to be tough, and it's going to throw you some curveballs, and it's going to really come at you, and you need to be prepared to how to deal with that. And I think we are doing a disservice to the generation now that are in those age groups to help them feel that they can get through life. And there are tough days, but that doesn't mean we need to give up. And so that's kind of become one of my side missions now is to be involved with suicide awareness and all of the things that go along with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've known 4 people who have taken their own lives, and there is no understanding it. I mean, unfortunately, the suffering is for the living because it's so hard to understand. You know, as hard as my life was as a young person, or anybody's is, you know, that was the one thing. And I think it's because I was well grounded with a good family and you know, a community and mentors. But you know, I often think, like, what if I didn't have those things? You know, what if I didn't? Did you happen to watch the 13 Reasons Why miniseries that was on Netflix recently, or read the book?
I have not.
Yeah,
I have not, and it's one of those things that's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's gotten a bit of controversy, and I watched it and I could see why, because you know, it's basically a young girl does a revenge suicide against in her world of these 13 other kids who had either done or not done something that led her to her decision. And so I think, you know, the controversy is, well, you know what, it was a decision she made, and you know, to blame all these other people is kind of hard. But then you see sort of all the things she goes through, and also we tend to forget what it was like to be that age. And I actually think, you know, as easy as life has gotten for our kids, I think every generation's had it easier, right? You know, when you think about life, it's actually harder when it comes to knowing how to deal with emotions. Yes, they're not for as much as I think others were. Like, my kids didn't work at 16. I did. You know, if I wanted to have something, I had to work. And my kids didn't. I wanted them to be active and do other things, and I could take care of that. But then they didn't learn a lot of the stuff that I did by having a job at 16. You know, what it's like to have a really bad job and have to deal with really bad managers and people and customer service and all the things that many of us who take jobs at a young age do. So, you know, I think that actually gives them they're less equipped to go out in the world in some ways at 18.
Right. And I agree with you completely, Alan. And that's one of the things that, you know, our kids, you know, they drive, you know, 10, 12-year-old cars. They do not get a brand new car when they're 16. And we told all of them, you will need to make honor roll and be involved in activities in school. And that is, quote, your job. And as long as they did those things, then, you know, I would provide them with a car. and gas and insurance and a cell phone. But I am my other kind of job, I guess, and how my kids and friends know me is that I'm the toughest mom on this planet. And that's actually the title of my third book, where I had told them, I said, look, I am getting you geared up for life. And there are going to be moments when I can't fix it and won't fix it. And then there's going to be other times when you aren't sure what to do and you're going to come to me and ask advice. And there were 3 words that the boys learned very early on when it came to, oh, I forgot my homework, or will you wash my baseball uniform, or, oh, can you take this to the cleaners, whatever. And those 3 words were not my problem. And they learned that because if I continued to cater to them and or make things easy for them, then I'm doing them a disservice by not preparing them for life. And usually when I said that's not my problem, I followed that up with don't make it my problem. You know, if they consistently were, late on getting homework turned in on time, for example, well, then you're going to make it my problem, and it's not going to be good for you, kind of a thing. And I think when you were talking about that series about that young lady, it made me think of a couple of different things. I think, kids are always looking for where they belong, and they're always looking for someone to give them permission to be who they are. And they aren't going to run into people that are always going to be on their side. There's always going to be a mean girl. There's always going to be a tough guy. There's always going to be those people. But the kids don't know how to deal with them because they're not even sure who they are. They, kind of wander around aimlessly thinking, okay, I want to hang out with her because she's popular, even though that girl is extremely mean to her or whatever. And in one of the classes that I work, that I teach at the middle schools here, is we always do an after program assessment or evaluation. And one of the things that these 6th grade girls filled out in terms of what we don't talk about is sadness. And so I have 12-year-old girls or 11-year-old girls that are already dealing with sadness, and they're starting to worry about how they're viewed by their peers.
Yeah.
There's competition, endless competition for whatever reason. And we need to get them to say, look, this is what I do really, really well, instead of focusing on what we don't do so well. There are things that I don't do so well, and I have to recognize them. But the kids now are like, I got to be the best in everything. I got to be the best in this. I got to be perfect. They have all of that. And so they don't ever really understand that, hey, what you have is great. But in their eyes, they think that it's never enough. And, when you were talking about, each generation getting easier, I automatically think of technology because you and I are the same age. We know what we had growing up. And we know what we didn't have. And so technology now has become a hindrance, especially when it comes to teenagers and especially teenagers, the junior high and the high school.
Well, and I think, in that communication area, that's so vital, learning how to communicate how you feel or anything. It's like I tell people, when I use Facebook, I'm not going to post the negative stuff of my life. Of course, you probably have friends who that's all they post, Certain people, it's one way, but I'm like, I'm not going to talk about politics. I won't do that. And I'm not going to talk about, I'm going to talk about all the great things going on in my life because it's almost like, another form of therapy, right? I get to write positive affirmation, which mentally makes you feel better, but it also, makes you feel better. Hey, there are things that are good. I can look back and go, hey, look at all these great times, that have happened. Versus like, hey, let me write another negative post about how life was so hard. And I think that's where you talk about being a quote writer. That's something that's really interesting to me that people don't always know, which is reading positive affirmations actually does rewire your brain. We were talking about brain rewiring. You're reading positive quotes every day. Your brain will start to believe what it reads, just like it'll believe the other side, right? The negative.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we're going to add to our website when we get this nonprofit to help those kids and young adults become more resilient is quotes. And not only do I write them, I've probably collected, off the internet close to 7,000, if not more. And, that the reaffirmations that we constantly need to see and read will start to sink in. And it's that consistency that, we all need to hear every once in a while. And that's how we get through it. And, technology is great because we can get that. We can go to Pinterest and we can download some quotes and pin them, and Twitter and all of those things. And yet, there's all this, not just negativity, but there's a lot of anonymity that comes with the technology that we have available to us. I can take a picture off Pinterest, say that it's me, and it doesn't look anything like me. And so, that's one of the struggles that I think kids really have to fight with is, if it says their name and it's a picture of them, it's not really them posting those things. And that's one of the hard parts, I think, that kids struggle with, that you and I never had to.
No, and I always say our biggest thing was the telephone, someone breathing heavy into the phone and you not knowing who it was. That was our cyberbullying, that's what cyberbullying was.
Absolutely. And you just really were creeped out about it. And, kids, I think, were more, they were more, you kind of picked up on the bullying a little bit more, so if some kid got pushed or whatever, knocked down in the hallway or whatever, you saw that and it was very visible, whereas technology allows kids to hide, especially the bullies to hide.
Definitely, And I think the other thing is, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, and as much as it allows the victims to hide as well, that, they can post something anonymously or make up some Twitter account and say that it's, whoever, and they can say it, and no one knows that they're expressing how they really feel. There's no tie to that person for sure. Right. You know what I mean?
And I think that feeling, that idea that you were talking about, one of the things that kids will never understand, especially teens, as they really are developing who their authentic self is. And this is why, to me, it's such a critical time, because they are developing, like, who am I going to be?
Right.
All the things like that you talk about, that I talk about, that we think or others think are good things, you're going to get an equal amount of people that think that's what they don't like about you.
Right.
You're too positive. You're too, just like we were talking about your father or other people who, are just negative, and they don't like it when you bring positiveness in. They see that sort of as a, like you're a Pollyanna and you have nothing bad to say, and the world doesn't actually. No, I'm just not going to play that game. I'm not going to be brought down by the way you feel, and I'm not going to let myself be brought down anymore, because I did that. I did it,
Right.
And I know what it feels like. and that's hard for a teen though, because they don't understand that yet. They don't understand that, life is really going to be about those four great friends that you have that totally understand you. And that's all they're going to be. There's going to be four, and it's not going to be 400 at your school, and you're not trying to make friends with everybody. And then, of course, the other part is that, C is supposed to be average, and kids are supposed to be excelling at every class. But in theory, they should be getting some A's, some B's, probably some C's, and maybe even a D. Right. They can't be great at everything. Right. You're good at what you're supposed to be good at, and we're not allowed to do that anymore. We're not allowing our children to I have a great mentor that talks about the blessing of a B-. And it's like, trying to make the point that a B- is above a C, meaning you're above average at a B-. Yeah. But we don't. Schools aren't set up that way. The kids don't think that way. Nope. We don't. A lot of parents don't think that way, and that makes it very difficult, because I think it leads to a downhill slope for the child. For the kid.
Well, one of the things that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
go
Alan. One of the things that I also, I just recently wrote something that if you're looking, basically the theme is, if you're looking for success, you'll find it on the road where you find failure. and was kind of the main theme. And that's one of the things that I didn't grow up with. I didn't allow myself to fail. And if I did fail, then I just felt absolutely horrible. And so I was on this constant quest to, continuously excel. And as many sports as I played, there were times when I would get out and get on the skis for the first time.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm this great athlete. I play 3 sports. I've been playing sports since I was 5. I should be able to do every sport fabulously well. And yet I can't tell you how many times I crashed and burned on a mountain just going down the bunny slope, because that was not a skill I had learned, and I didn't allow myself to become a beginner.
Right.
And we, even as adults, we don't like failure. We don't want to stick our necks out there and be criticized for trying something new. And when I left my full-time job in 2014, I had several people that didn't know that I was doing some of these other things behind the scenes. And yet I knew that I had to at least try it, because I have reached a point in my life where I refuse to have any regrets. And there were times when I would say something to someone and basically let my heart be seen, which is what kids don't do either.
Yeah.
And then immediately regret it. I would be like, okay, I said it in the moment and now I want it back, because my mind had started to take over instead of letting my heart be in the moment. And I think that, we have to allow these kids to, and the young adults too, because 2 of the people that committed suicide actually had graduated from high school. So they were considered alumni. But, allow them to say, you know what, it's okay to fall down. And it's not the falling down that you have to avoid. It's the making sure that you get back up.
Right. Well, and you can appreciate this as a basketball. Michael Jordan has one of the best quotes about, what it means to succeed. And I think they talk about, the 4 games that he shot the last basket and won. And he goes, but no one talks about the 60 games that I didn't, that I missed it and we didn't win. It's like, that's what life is. It's getting back up and not staying down and not letting this one failure decide you're going to fail all the time. It's like, trust me, I wanted to play guitar like nobody's business. That was a dream of mine. Yeah. I can't play guitar, but I'll keep trying. It's not going to stop me from trying.
Exactly.
But I can't be good at everything. I can't. That was not my thing. But I didn't let it bring me down. I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't. I'm not musical. And so I find you find this is your other, again, you can be a C in some things or a D in some things. Right. And find the things that you love and you're passionate about. So where, from here, you're starting a new business. What's your ultimate goal? Where do you go?
Well, my the new thing that I'm starting is the nonprofit, and in addition, it complements what I already do in terms of being the empowerment. My company partners with Fit Girl Inc., which is the empowerment organization that helps teenage girls. So I'm at that empowerment piece. I'm helping those teenage girls, and that just kind of happened really. I quit my job to be motivational speaker, and I've spoken to a variety of different groups for a variety of different topics, but mostly it's inspirational in nature, motivational in nature, and I do all kinds of writing. I know you found me as an author on Lifehack, and so I continue to write for them and other online publications. And my ultimate goal is to reach out to as many people as I can to help them live not just better lives, but empowered lives. And a lot of times we hold off on doing something until someone tells us that it's okay. When we're children, we're told, don't cross the street until you look, and so we hold back. Don't do this because this could happen. And nobody is there going, go ahead. And so my biggest goal is to empower the people that I come in contact with, and having worked with, women at these local shelters, it's changed me in ways just hearing their stories. And if I can, we talked a little bit earlier about if it matters to one, then one is enough. And I think people are so focused on the number of people that you help. And if you can help one family not have to bury their child because of something that I said or did, then I'm a success, and that fills my heart and soul in ways that other material things will not.
Yeah.
And that is a part of my purpose. And I love collaborating with like-minded people and knowing that our goals are the same regardless of the amount of recognition or what kind of recognition comes. That's not, then you lose the purpose if it becomes about something that you need to hold on to. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to do something that people won't talk about.
Yeah.
People don't want to talk about suicide awareness or the benefits of connecting with people that are fighting the bullying.
Right.
And trying to make these kids better people so that as they go through life, they're not willing to quit at 23. They just keep getting back up. And I know that we all have our inner demons, and we all fight them. Some days are easier to fight them than others. And the more times that we can come together and allow us to recognize, okay, this is what's happening, then, sometimes we can handle it on our own, but sometimes we need other people to help us, whether it's, a friend, or I like to call them angels, that help, and say, hey, you know what, that's not going to happen. And it's in the telling of the stories and sharing those experiences, Alan, that I think ultimately connect us all as one people. And I think we've also gotten away from that. Look, we've all had stuff. We all have baggage. We've all got a few scrapes and scars and things like that. And instead of hiding from them and being ashamed by them, it's just like Brene Brown, that, being able to say, look, I'm human. This is what I have. This is why I am the way I am. But this is how I overcome those really, really tough days, is the way that we ultimately, get up for another day and enjoy that sunrise.
I tell you, you just went full circle, and it's such I hate to end the interview, but I think we'll do this again. I think we will. But
I look forward to it.
I love
again. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So how can people get in touch with you? What's the easiest way for people to learn more about what you're doing and how they might be able to reach you?
Well, they can reach me several different ways, and I always tell people that if they Google Michelle Homme and you find a young gal out of San Francisco that is decorating a pillow on a couch, that's not me. She's an interior designer. So that's why I use my middle initial. But they can go to Michelle A. Homme, HOMME.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Instagram. Truly, I tell people that if you can't find me, you're just not looking hard enough, because we all know how wide the web is. So,
well, I will make it easy for them by having all those links with the with the podcast, so everyone will be able to get in touch with you. Well, you have just been I don't know, the word that's coming to my mind is magical, but just really a magical guest in terms of being inspiring. I think you know what's great, and I feel the same way, is and when I'm talking, I just feel excited because I'm hoping that there's just one person that's hearing, like we're saying, this one person that just needed to hear that. And you said some really wonderful things today on the show, and I know we'll get to do it again because we had a litany of questions that we didn't even hit. But you're inspiring, and you're doing great work. And, I was so impressed with what I read when I first came in contact with you. And now talking to you, you're an inspiration. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and being that for the people that need to hear it and see it and feel it. It's wonderful work.
Great. Thank you, Alan. It's very humbling in all different ways and facets, but I know that this is something that has become, my purpose and my calling, and it has taken me from what I thought I needed to do to something that I know that I have to do and want to do. And your compliments are very heartfelt and truly humble me beyond words. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for being on the show again. So this is Alan Eisenberg with Healthy You. Please join us next time.
Thank you for listening to Healthy University, brought to you by Bullying Recovery, LLC. This podcast does not replace the need for medical advice, professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or any other individual. The information provided here or through linkages to other sites is not a substitute for medical or professional care, and you should not use the information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Join us next time for more Healthy University.